Gee whiz. I didn't know. I guess my secret's out now. This is terrible. Oh, wow. Is this thing working? Check, 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 check. Now you know how I keep this youthful complexion for every week. It's artificial, completely artificial. But thanks to a 3-inch polyester brush, I can go for at least 10 more years. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Tammy Faye Baker. That is exactly it, Daniel. That's where I got the idea. And that and one other show on YouTube that will go unnamed. Let's see who we've got here today. We got Steve and Christy and Dave-O and Rudy. Welcome, Rudy. Rudy's watching from Belgium. That is so cool. Scott's here. Christopher's here. Michael and Rod in the UK. Tommy in the AL. Tess is here. Tess is my inspiration today. Tess in PA and James in Texas Mike and the other Dave and Brian in Ireland. Merle and Anderson in Barbados. Amnon in North Carolina. Kenny and Daniel. All right, very good. Let's see, make sure we didn't miss anybody. If you're watching live and you're saying, who in the world is he talking to? Go over to, where is the pre-show graphic? There we go. Go to our website, easternshorebroadcasting.com, and you can get in on the chat, and that's the cool part. John's in England. Oh, excuse me, sorry. That was evening in Scotland. John Thompson. John, Scotland it's not my home, but it's where I came from, where my family came from anywhere. There we go. So glad to have you. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. What else we got going here? Don't want to get into the steel moan thunder here for the show. Did any of you guys see the PTZ Optics show before this one, where they were upgrading their PTZ camera to NDI ready firmware? That was pretty cool. In fact, that's what we're using today, is an NDI HX PTZ Optics camera. That's our main camera today, coming in NDI. Michael says, I wonder if anyone's ever found this show on YouTube and thought Tom was talking to himself. Well, it may be. Do I wear a kilt as well? I have never worn a kilt. Well, there were some college days that shall go unmentioned, but other than that, I've never worn anything that resembles a skirt. Tommy thinks his family came from Botany Bay. All right. Very good. Very good. All right, so Daniel was watching PTZ Optics, and Christy was watching PTZ Optics. Scott came in on the end and missed it. Well, that's okay. That's okay. It's live video that is recorded, so you've got that option to watch it later. Ted's here. Welcome, Ted. Glad to have you, indeed. Let's see who else might have slipped in also. Looks like Peter's here, and James. And Dave Edwards. Dave, let me tell you a story about Dave Edwards. Dave, I owe you an email, don't you? Don't I? I forgot all about that. I need to make that introduction. I hope that works out. Amnon said, ask him if he wears a skirt. He doesn't call it a kilt. You guys are too funny. Whoops. Thank you for reminding me. We need to turn this rascal off here. I'm getting a message. Not from any of you guys, so that's just as well. And a bundle of emails. Very good, very good. That's great. That's great. And an urgent voicemail. Oh my goodness. Well, let me check this urgent voicemail here just 1 second. It was not urgent. It could have waited. That's okay. That's all right. Let's see. Anderson wants to know what version of Vmix I started with. I think I started with the HD version. Yep. And then bumped up to 4K and then to Pro and then to multiple licenses. Michael says, wait, marking a voicemail as urgent actually does something? Well, it depends on the person receiving the voicemail. I have a lot of clients that we have special arrangements with, i.e. we have contracts with them for support. And when there is a voicemail marked urgent, a lot of times that can mean help. So I just wanted to make sure that was not the case. Ted thinks my face looks a little blue. Well, it's probably the makeup. Let's see. Oh, version number. Okay, Anderson, version number. Golly. 14 maybe? Maybe 13? I think I when I first started the Streaming Idiots series, we were live streaming with VidBlaster and using Wirecast to encode and record. And then we switched over, played around with Vmix, and we're using Vmix to stream and record, but still using VidBlaster for production. And then we switched, I think, to Vmix for production and VidBlaster to stream and record. And then finally made the jump to Vmix completely. So it was in the 12, 13, 14 range. I'd have to go back and check. Version of VidBlaster that I ended with, I think, was it 3.36 was the last, kind of the latest, greatest. Scott says, while you were muted, I was adding in a voiceover. That's great. That's great. Oh, Mike Wilson says, I ended when I saw VidBlaster X and realized none of my concerns had been addressed in a complete redesign. Yeah. Yep, another dead postman. Probably not. Maybe annoyed, but not dead. Anderson says he thinks it was version 10. You were doing 2 shows then. That's true. I was doing 2 shows. I was doing a half an hour, that VidBlaster guy show, and a half an hour Streaming Idiot show back to back, which was really, it wasn't a good idea. Amnon says I was using 4-something, VidBlaster 4-something. Well, I'll take your word for it. Yeah, probably like 427. That's a number that rings a bell. Boy, that's a history lesson, isn't it? All right, well, let's get this show on the road, and then we'll see what happens, shall we? We'll see what happens. Oh, let's see who else. Blaze is here, and running down the list. If I missed you, I apologize in advance. And Mike L is here. Hassan is here. Welcome. Glad to have you guys. John. Yes. Steve Anderson. Amnon. Daniel. Kenny. Rich is here. Rich. All right. Rich is here. What was it that Rich is going to be? Oh, yeah. Rich. I probably shouldn't tell you. I probably should have told you privately. But, how much of the backstory should I share, Rich? It's hard not to share. It's hard to share a little of it without sharing all of it. So let's put it this way. Rich, I'll share the rest of it. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not appropriate to do this. I've been invited to be on another show. Just as a guest, just one time. And it's going to be on Monday, I think like Monday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It is the Live Streaming Pros show with David Foster and Luria Petrucci. I'm sure I mispronounced that. Well, obviously at least once. but that's going to be fun. I'm not quite sure what the subject is, but they invited me to come on. I mean, they're doing kind of a series on live streaming, even though they are a live streaming show. And I think Paul Richards and Tess Protesto from PTZ Optics were actually on that show yesterday doing a similar interview, which was just a hoot. I listened to it while I was driving. I couldn't watch it because I was driving, but I put the Facebook on real, what was it, like the 360p, so it wouldn't eat, so it would eat as the least amount of phone data as it could, and then I could hear the show, so it was a lot of fun to hear it. And they had David was doing the interview, and Paul and Tess were the interviewees, and I thought Paul and Tess' video looked better. Anyway, it's going to be fun. Michael said, "You're cheating on us with another show." Well, Michael, I've been on other shows before. I've been on other shows before, and I'm thrilled, and it's fun. Let's put it that way. It's fun. You get your name out there. It's fun. You hope you don't say something really stupid, which for me is a bridge too far. But I've also been invited to be on a NAB show, to be on a panel at NAB actually on the Saturday of the conference portion, but not the trade show portion. The trade show opens on Monday, but this would be on Saturday. So, well, I'll give you some more information with that. I think actually Paul Richards and I are going to be on the same panel, so that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. So idiots versus pros. Oh yeah, that's going to be good. So it levels out at mediocre, says Scott. That's great. All right, hold on. Everybody got some lemonade today? Yep. It's a green cup. Isn't that interesting that it doesn't, even though it's green, it doesn't key out? Wow. Look at there. I did change the lights in the studio a little bit today. And I moved two lights that were beside me at about, what would this be, a 90-degree angle. So they're about a, 67-degree angle. And I directed them back at the green screen. So the only thing really illuminating me per se is the two umbrella lights. If you saw last week's show, you saw the studio tour. Okay. All right. It is the alcohol that makes it show, Tom. No, there's no alcohol in that. It's just lemonade. I was thinking about that. We were, oh golly, side story. Not a big. It's hardly worth telling. Anyway, I had my first trip to something called Costco. I'd never been to a Costco before, and so I got to go to Costco. My brother is a member, and so he took me. And I like lemonade. I really do. I like the Country Time lemonade. We buy it in huge canisters because I go through it like water. And so we bought a bunch of those canisters. So now I've got all these giant canisters. I thought about bringing them in and use them as an appropriate prop for this show. But nevertheless, yes, we're still in pre-show, Alfredo. Sorry about that. It's the pre-show overtime period. That's right. We're 5 minutes into We're 5 minutes into the show, but the show hadn't started. Let's see who else might have showed up. Want to give everybody a chance to get here, and it's not like the network's going to spank us on the ham. Oh, Gilliam's here from France. Welcome. Glad to have you. And looking down the list. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Alfredo's here. Yes. Okay, I guess that's it. I digressed. Yes, I did. Hey, if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, come down. Whoops, it's over here. Come down to EasternShoreBroadcasting.com and click the Watch Live tab, and you can get in on. Well, maybe you don't want to get in on the chat. No offense to the guys in chat, but maybe you don't want to get in on the chat. But there's some pretty cool stuff here. All right, Scott says we're going to sell sponsorships on your casket and bury you in a giant Country Time lemonade can. That wins the award for the most absurd statement in chat ever. That way he gets paid to stream the funeral. No offense taken, of course. Yes. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, there we go. All right. So it's a 25-minute pre-show. No. What's wrong with the guys in chat? Well, if you didn't get it, never mind. I'm just poking fun at you guys. It's kind of like the teenage boy that pokes fun at the teenage girl because he doesn't know how to relate to her. I poke fun at you guys. Not that I think of you guys like a teenage girl. Boy, that one went down in a heartbeat. That's going to be flamed all over the place. Never mind. Forget that analogy. Not a good one, but you get the idea. Okay. All right, George Vic's here. We can get started. Sit tight. Here we go. You caught me. I was muting my cell phone. I just realized at the last second I hadn't done that. Hey, I'm Tom Sinclair, and this is Streaming Idiots, and I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching us live, big shout out and a welcome. Thank you for tuning in on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. And if you're thinking about it and you say, golly, Tom, don't you have a chat room? Yeah, I do. Come over to easternshorebroadcasting.com, and you can get in on the chat. The live chat. If you're watching us after the fact, then never mind. It doesn't really matter. Well, actually, it does. If you hear about something, or one of the things that I like to do with a show that I like to watch live, but sometimes I miss it live, and so I watch it after the fact, video on demand. And if they have a chat room with the show, I kind of like to read the chat comments as I'm watching and listening to the show and try to imagine which comments go with which part of the show, because sometimes there may be something that's really important that I might want to grab, like a URL or the name of a new product or something like that. So if you are watching after the fact, you can still go to easternshorebroadcasting.com and click the Watch Live tab. And actually, you can watch the previous week's show there, and right below it is the chat, which you can pop out. So there you go. It's going to be fun. So we're just getting started. We're late today because Martin is just now showing up, but that's okay. We're glad to have Martin whenever we can. A couple of newsy things, of course, coming up in April is NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters convention, conference, and trade show in Las Vegas. You're going to want to be there because that's where all the cool stuff will be. It's like a giant toy store for streamers and broadcasters. Believe me, it's going to be cool. I'm going to be there thanks to the folks at Vmix. They've asked me to come out and work with them again this year. So we're going to be at the Vmix booth in the South Hall. You'll want to make sure that's one of the stops that you make. And you are cordially invited. Don't tell anybody else. But you are cordially invited to the Streaming Idiots meetup Tuesday night. That's April 10th at NAB at Scott Whitney's live streaming studio there in Las Vegas. So go to easternshorebroadcasting.com or go to the Facebook Streaming Idiots page. Yeah, just go to Facebook and type and search Streaming Idiots. It'll pop up. It's actually a group. Join the group, and you can. And there's an event there, and you can RSVP to the event. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's not going to be dancing girls or comedians or any of that stuff. It's just going to be us streaming idiots there hanging out, having a good time and enjoying each other's company and talking about streaming. And we'll have some giveaways and that kind of stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun. We'll have more info as we get closer. Also coming up, starting next week, in fact, starting next Tuesday, in fact, you can't even buy it yet. It's that new. But is our new educational series, Vmix 101. If you have started out on Vmix, and if you're like me, I try to learn new software based on what I need it to do for me. So I go and find out how to do this, and I go and find out how to do this, and then I go find out how to do this, which wraps those two things together. But I miss all the other stuff. And then I kind of gradually discover that stuff along the way through trial and error, sometimes through reading the documentation. But if you said, hey, I wish I knew more about Vmix. I wish I knew more about functions like triggers or shortcuts, things like that, but I don't, but I think I would benefit, then the Vmix 101 class might be for you, because we're going to go through all the kind of the basics of Vmix, the basics of live production with Vmix as its core, talking about streaming and recording and inputs and outputs and videos and macros. Well, they really don't call them macros, they call them shortcuts. But anyway, you get the idea. It's going to be a great class. Everybody whose email address I have is going to get an invitation, and we'll put it on our website at easternshorebroadcasting.com in the store under live streaming rookies classes. You don't have to be a rookie to come, but we'd love to have you show up. If you want more information about it, shoot me an email, tom@easternshorebroadcasting.com, or sign up for our email list, which is on our page, easternshorebroadcasting.com. There's an opt-in. Or if you go to Streaming Idiots and want to join the group at Streaming Idiots, you're asked for your email address, and so we can contact you from there. Oh, Chuck's here. Good. Chuck and I have got a meeting tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. What else is news? Any other news? News. No. Big shout out and a thank you to all the folks that we've done business with since last week. All the folks that have asked us well, let's do the infomercial part, shall we? Remember, this show is say it with me. Say it with me. It's kind of like a drinking game, right? Say it with me. This show is a giant infomercial. That's right. Okay, everybody but Tommy Willis got it. So let's try it again so Tommy can get it. This show is a giant infomercial. That's right. A lot of info and a little bit of mercial. And so here's the mercial part. I'm Tom Sinclair. We already knew about that. I own the company Eastern Shore Broadcasting. You probably already knew about that. At Eastern Shore Broadcasting, we represent lots of different companies that we sell their products and software. For example, Vmix is our flagship company that we represent. We were the 2017 Vmix Reseller of the Year. That's how important Vmix is to us. But we also represent some other cool companies like PTZ Optics. We sell a lot of those cameras, and a lot of times we'll take the PTZ Optics cameras with Vmix and with our own brand of live streaming PC called Live Streaming Gear, by the way, and we'll bundle it up together as a bundle. In fact, I just quoted one this morning that we did that, and we added an X keys, and because we also represent the X keys, that's the folks at PI Engineering, and we really like them. And oh golly, geez, I have sort of a unwritten verbal NDA with PI Engineering, but there is something really cool coming down the pike with X keys that will be here before NAB. So you heard it here. Well, you didn't hear it here first because I'm not allowed to say it. But just keep your eyes out. Keep your eyes out. You'll want to see that one. Yes, Tommy. This is still part of the commercial. I know it's getting a little long, but just bear with me just another second. So we got X keys, of course. Yes, we're doing X keys right here today, and we're continuing to play with our new X keys PTZ control. It's got the joystick on it. That's really cool. We also represent Marshall cameras. Marshall cameras are the cameras that the NBA uses, where they put over the backboard, looking down into the basket for that great shot. And Marshall cameras are also the cameras that the NFL uses in the pylon shot. So if you follow professional football here in the States at all, and you see that shot of somebody running down the sideline to the end zone or crossing the end zone line from low to the ground, that's probably a pylon shot, and that's probably a Marshall camera. So they're really great. They're very durable. They're not real big, and they come in HDMI or SDI versions. Not NDI at this point that I know of. Yep. The let's see. Oh, somebody says the timeout. That chat wing had a timeout reset. Yeah, that happens to me too. I'm going to figure that one out one of these days. Other commercial parts, I guess that's it. If you need some live streaming gear, call me. We'll talk about what's best. And in fact, a lot of times folks will call and say, Tom, what do you think about, oh, I know. Yeah, well, what do you think about the Black Magic DeckLink Quad 2 card versus the Magewell card? We represent Magewell. And we can have a frank discussion about your budgets and what you need and how important reliability is and things like that. And help you get on your way. I mean, sometimes the answer is not all. Sometimes the best answer for you is not always what I sell, and so I'm happy to say that I want that to be. I want to be a good, reliable source of good, reliable information that you can take to the bank and use and increase your live streaming kit by making good decisions. So I kind of blundered through that, but anyway. All right, so enough of the commercial part. Let's get into the info. Have we got all our info part? We did the class. We did the meetup. Okay. So today we want to talk a little bit about my secret sauce. And before Tommy goes crazy thinking that I'm mixing up something and pouring it on top of the PCs that I sell, obviously, I'm really not doing that, Tommy. I'm really not doing that. But I do have a checklist of tips and tricks that I go through every time I build a PC. And some of them I'm going to share with you now. I'm not going to share all of them, of course. Can't give away all the secret sauce. Can't give away the whole recipe. But I can give away a little of it. And some of these things may be common sense to you, but they also may be light bulbs to other people. They say, I hadn't thought about that before. Golly gee, let's do it. All right, so no, Michael, we're not talking about KFC. We're talking about PCs. This is my secret recipe for my secret sauce. And what I call it, for those of you that are in the, what's the word for it? I guess the tuning world of automotives. Tuning is the new hot rodding. And so we want to talk about tuning a PC so that it can live stream. And in the automotive tuning world, we're talking about taking a car and making it do one thing really, really well. And so we're going to tune it for that certain things happen at certain RPM to get the most torque. And we're probably going to change the valve timing, or we're going to change the fuel injection, and we're going to do that with a chip that we've programmed, or else somebody's helped us program. So we'll set that aside for a second and say, in live streaming, in a perfect world, and none of us live in the perfect world, but we can try. In a perfect world, we would have our live streaming PC be a single duty PC. That is, it would only be involved in live streaming production. In my case, I use way underpowered equipment, and so by using NDI, I can use more than one PC at a time, and that helps get me over the hump. But for the ones that I build, whoops, my chat wing just timed out again. Let's reconnect here. For the ones that I build, I have a secret recipe that I use to tune that PC so that when it goes out to a client, it is at maximum horsepower, maximum torque, based on the needs of live streaming. And so let me share with you a couple of those, and let me set up, I should really do this kind of stuff in advance, but let me just set up a desktop capture real quickly here so that I can show you guys what my PC looks like. Okay, this is the display one from my PC. Currently I've got two displays connected, and so this is the left hand display, and the right hand has just got Chatwing on it, and actually the audio mixer from Vmix I've popped out, and then it also shows the YouTube feed. By the way, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, I would invite you to, all the way down in the bottom right hand corner, come on over to easternshorebroadcasting.com, and you can get it on the chat, because there's lots of stuff going on in the chat, and we'll take that off. One of the very first things I do when I'm building a PC is I deal with Microsoft Windows 10. Yes. And so the idea is that we want to take Microsoft Windows 10, which is bloated with all sorts of stuff because, Windows is building an operating system to meet the needs of hundreds of millions, perhaps even billions with a B, of users. And so Windows has got to have everything known to man on there. But that's not what we need. We don't need to have access to 43 printers on a network. We don't need, at least in my case, we don't need to have access to 300 languages. We don't need to have access to all sorts of games, although we do like the hardware functions that gaming requires. For example, the NVIDIA graphics card, which is a big standby for gamers, and also, if you probably already know, Bitcoin miners. So we're going to take some of that stuff off. Rich says, got to have solitaire. Well, you can leave solitaire, but let's take away every other game. Now, let's see what I can show. If I can show my desktop, and we're going to go into settings, and we're going to go into apps. Now, if this looks different than your Windows 10, I may have the later Creators Edition, so you might want to go through that. And so now we have a list of apps that we can look at, and you can get a peek into the kinds of things that I'm interested in. And what you won't see here are any games. In fact, you won't even see solitaire here because everything that's not necessary I've removed. Now, somehow this little guy snuck in there, and this is probably a piece of software that got installed off my network from my network printer. And so I can uninstall it, and pow, it's gone. It's that simple. You want to be a little careful in what you uninstall. And you can see I've got some Microsoft stuff still left in here. The Microsoft Store, by the way, is grayed out, so you can't uninstall that, but that's all right. You can see I've got the NVIDIA drivers there, but what I don't have is the NVIDIA experience. I've got the Skype Classic, which is a download, but I don't have the Skype app because it doesn't work with Vmix. You can see I've got Wirecast there because I was testing that. And so you'll want to go through your apps, and I'm guessing that you'll find 20 or 30 apps that you don't need for streaming. Yep. Maybe Tom was trying to keep it a secret. Well, no, this is not secret stuff. I mean, this is pretty common stuff. It's the kinds of things that you need to know if you're live streaming. And like anybody else, you start out with your sort of basic knowledge, and you add to it and add to it and add to it. And then, there are folks that have been doing it for a long time, and they have, their favorite kinds of things that they will do. Let's go back to settings for a second. And I'll let you take a look at my system, and you see I've got 3 monitors, but really only 2 are used as monitors. The third one, number 1, I think. Let's see. Let's identify here. Yeah, actually, number 1 is the 55-inch Confidence monitor sitting across the room from me that shows the multi-view. I've got all my resolutions set for 1080 for all the 3 monitors, so things are relatively the same. And then under power, actually, I want to set these, especially on a laptop, to never. Never turn off the screen, never go to sleep. Some of the older systems might say, when to turn off the hard drive. My answer to that question is always never. Don't turn off anything. I want everything running constantly. Sometimes on a laptop, you'll have an option here to throttle back the CPU speed when you're on battery power. And you'll just have to decide what you want to do there. For the most part, I've found that when I do that, when I don't throttle it back, or actually it throttles back automatically, but if I override that, I cut my battery life to about 25% of what's normal. So you'll have to go kind of down that road yourself and see if it's worth having the extra CPU horsepower for having a shorter duration in the battery. Let's show you what we've got here. You can see this is an Intel Core i7 2600K out of the box at 3.4 gigahertz. I've got it overclocked to 4 gigahertz here with water cooling and 16 gigs of RAM. That's the sweet spot there. There's the Windows Pro and the version 1709. And Michael says many laptops will throttle regardless, but you want to test it and make allowances if you can. I have a friend that will take a 12-volt automotive battery and put it on a hand truck with a power inverter and run his laptop at remote activities like that so that he can keep it on full throttle. And I think that's pretty swell idea. Let's see, what else can I show you without giving away too much? Let's go back into Vmix settings. And we can talk a little bit about updates. And we'll check for an update right now. But one of the things that I will make sure I do is to check for updates, if I can, the day before a broadcast. Today, for example, I was out of town. I left the day after last week's show and got back in last night, so I was gone for about a week. So I made sure last night that I came in and fired up all the PCs here in the studio and gave them a chance to update and restart, and then a chance to update again if need be and restart, so I didn't have any surprises as I came in this morning to get ready for today's show. There's nothing worse than having, you can see we're installing a Windows Defender antivirus, which it did this morning. I don't know why it's doing it again. Maybe they update them that frequently. And the idea is that you don't get surprised by a big update and suddenly all your bandwidth is gone because Windows has decided it needed to download an update. And then it's got that update sitting there waiting to install while you're live streaming. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. As Rich says in the chat, every second Tuesday is Microsoft Patch Day. And so sometimes that means, and it's really funny, sometimes for me that will mean, Monday night late, like 1 a.m. technically Tuesday morning. And sometimes it means like Tuesday at 11 p.m. right before midnight. There doesn't seem to me to be any rhyme or reason for the time that the patches come out. And in fact, some days I've actually gotten the Tuesday patch on Wednesday. So if you do a Wednesday show like I do, you want to pay attention to that second Tuesday because that's the one that can get you. But sometimes it just can get you in terms of bandwidth. The other thing that I wanted to mention today, and a big shout out. Who was it a shout out to? Yeah, I guess you guys didn't see what I was doing just then because I had the wrong screen up. But let's see if we can find this little piece of software here And we'll go back to that guy for just a second. And yeah, here it is. It's called Inspector. And we'll run that. And let's run that on top of Vmix. There we go. And you can see that, let's see, let's turn on the sharpen here so we can get a better idea of what that looks like. There we go. And you can see that my PC is not protected from meltdown and is not protected from Spectre, and the performance is good. And last week I had, I forget who it was in chat that introduced this, but I really did appreciate them doing it. And what we found out was that my system had been protected against meltdown, and as a result it had kind of, what's the right word, compromised, I guess might be. It has slowed down my CPU. It had disabled, I guess, some of the function in my CPU. And so all of a sudden I was running 80% on my little i7 2600K processor. Now I'm running 45%, and about 30% of that is Vmix. And what this little device, what this little software will do, and it's INSPECTRE, and it's a free download. It will restore your system to the pre-Microsoft tinkering format. So whatever protections Microsoft built in will now be unprotected. Well, you say, Tom, doesn't that bother you to have a PC that's unprotected like that? Well, the PCs that I build don't have virus protection. They have, Windows Defender, because Microsoft wants it to have Windows Defender, and I will agree with that. John says it was him. John Thompson said it was him that told us about this last week. So thank you, John. Big hat tip to you. But if your PC is a single-use PC and you're not going to websites that you shouldn't have, and you're not opening emails that say you've won you've won $1, then you're not likely to get in trouble and be found out. And if you're on a network with a firewall, you're probably pretty safe, especially since you're not going to be using that PC for other work, and that PC's not just sitting out there as a bot on 24/7. The idea is that you're using it when you need it, and when you're not, you're not. And so it's not going to be, I don't think, this is my opinion now, I'm not an expert in the field, but I will say I feel very comfortable not having antivirus on my PC and having disabled the Spectre and Meltdown protections that Microsoft wanted to put in there. I don't lose any sleep about that whatsoever. And I love having my CPU back. So go ahead and take a look at it. It's INSPECTRE, Inspectra is how it would be pronounced here in the US, but Inspector overseas. And it's a free download. And you have to reboot after you run it. That's the one part that is not particularly clear in the instructions. John says Windows Defender is antivirus, Tom. Aware of that, but I don't want Norton or McAfee or any of those others in there kind of gumming up the works, as it were, wanting to look at everything before anything is allowed to move. That's not what we're going to do. Thank you, Rich, for posting the link to the Inspector website. You need to reboot, Michael. Yeah, run it and then reboot, and then it should say that your system is protected, no, and your performance is good. And it's interesting, if you've already done it, but before you reboot, Michael, it would be interesting to run a piece of software like Vmix and see what the total CPU usage is in its Spectre and Meltdown protected state, and then disable Spectre and Meltdown protection and see what you pick up. that will be where the rubber hits the road, I think. And what I've noticed here in the studio is that the older the chips are, the more they're affected. So this is second generation i7, and it bloody well took me from 50% to 90% and made the CPU, frankly, almost unusable for live streaming. And so I really appreciate John Thompson showing us this tip to do away with the Spectre and Meltdown protection. So there you go. That's that one. And I think that's probably the best tip that I'm going to show with you today. So Michael says he thinks he'll do that. He'll run Vmix a few games, maybe CPU mark, and write up a post if there's significant improvements. It's an i5 with 2.67 gigahertz. So it's an older chip. Michael, what is do you know the i5 model? Just out of curiosity. Not trying to get too much into your stuff, but it's interesting to have the story so that as I tell this story again and again, I can add the other stories to it, the anecdotal evidence. It's an i5 750. Gotcha. Okay. Well, you probably, it'd be interesting. You might be over the hump in the sense that there may not be any vulnerability at all in yours because it's so old. So we'll see. So, apps, virus protection, system meltdown, and Spectre. Those are the ones I feel most comfortable sharing with you. I've got one more, and I want to check on it, and if it's one that I can share without it getting me in trouble, I'll share it with you next week. So there we go. There we go. There we go. All right. Well, guys, we are going to wrap up this segment and move into post-show. So I see Samuel's here. Thank you for joining us, Samuel, for the show today. And who else popped in when I wasn't looking? Samuel's probably going to have to bring refreshments to the post-show, as will Martin K. There you go. Thank you, Martin. And Giles is here. Welcome. Glad to have you. All right. So there we go. And it looks like, looked like we froze up there for just a second. We'll have to investigate that and see what's going on there. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will be back with you next week. And if you're watching us live, hang on for the post show. Take care. Okay, that means we're done. Very cool. Very cool. And a big shout out to Martin Sinclair and Tim from Vmix. They had a Vmix Funtime Live show yesterday, which I haven't watched yet. So I would encourage you guys to go take a look at that. That'll be a lot of fun. John wants to know any cracks or hacks for Vmix. That'll get you banned. That's right. Yep. A hack might be different if you can find a way to improve it. But a crack is not a good thing. Yeah, we've had a couple of folks that got sent to the woodshed, sent behind the woodshed in the Streaming Idiots group for suggesting different ways where you could get a crack, or if they needed a crack or something like that. Yeah, John says it's a standing joke in the Streaming Idiots group now when someone comes in looking for a key. Yes. And Samuel has brought mixed nuts for everyone. All right. Oh, Was the chat supposed to be there? I see a black box to the right of the screen. Oh, right over here. Yeah, well, it was supposed to be there. Huh. Golly gee, where'd it go? Jens is here. Welcome, Jens. Glad to have you. And Michael says, say no to crack. Well, here's the thing. If you're using Vmix in a production that has value, do you really want something that's cracked? That is, it's liable to stop working at any time for any reason? I mean, don't you think Martin Sinclair is smart enough to know that people are cracking his software and how they are cracking it? So he can put some little, I won't call them bugs, but maybe some preventative measures in there. I mean, you can always tell when somebody is using cracked software because they'll come into the Vmix forum, or sometimes they'll come to Streaming Idiots, and they'll say, you know, my Vmix is doing XYZ. Well, that XYZ automatically gives you away as a crackhead, as somebody that's using an unlicensed, stolen copy of Vmix. And I don't know of anybody that is, at least not in the Streaming Idiots group, and certainly not with Vmix, that's going to provide any support to somebody that has been involved in software piracy. We all take that very seriously and just not going to stand by it. Unfortunately, well, not really. You know, it really does. You know, sometimes they make rules and laws to keep bad people from doing things, and it really impacts good people more than it does bad people sometimes. I mean, how many of you have flown lately and have had to go through a security check? Yeah, they want to know everything about you, and they want you to take off everything. Not everything, but, you know, you get the idea. And so it ends up punishing the good folks. But software that has some crack prevention or some little time bombs built into it typically doesn't impact us too much, other than the fact that our dearly beloved live streaming production developer has to spend time on doing that and not making great new features for us. Yeah, John says they deserve all they get. Tom, Vmix folks deserve to get paid for their excellent efforts. I agree, and I think, you know, even as a Vmix reseller, I think the software is priced too low. I've told Martin and Tim that from the very beginning, that it should be, and not because I as a reseller want to make money, but because the value of the software is significantly greater than the cost, and that kind of imbalance, I think, means that they're not getting adequately compensated, and as a result may not have as much time, energy, and money for future development. But the other thing is the public perception. If it doesn't cost a lot, it must be a toy. And Vmix is not a toy. Vmix is a very serious live production tool. And there are a lot of people, once they've discovered that, have built their entire live productions around Vmix. Yep. I could put the video of Dave Edwards right there. Tommy, that's a great idea. We'll have to do that. Yeah, and Vmix don't tell anybody this, but the official policy is that Vmix has a $60 a year update so that you can get the latest, greatest versions. Not that you're going to move from Vmix to 4K, but so your Vmix HD can go from version, 13 to 14 to 15 to 16, etc. And what has happened the last several years is that Vmix has consistently waived that fee and simply said to you and me and everybody else, if you want the latest, greatest, go get it. It's right over there. We're happy to have you do that. And so at some point, I suspect, they may say, we need to start collecting that fee again. But even at the very worst, you've had multiple years of free upgrades. So I think that's pretty cool. It's a good investment on their part. I don't mind that one. I like that one. I like that idea. I think that shows good faith on Vmix's part, where they really want to continue to embrace their users, and they want their users to have the latest, greatest that Vmix has to offer. Unlike some other products where you can pay, 50% or 25% of your original investment in order to get the upgrade. So I think that's pretty cool. Michael Wilson said, that's super nice, but they got to go ahead and reinstate the fee. They could even double it for 4K and Pro. More money equals better Vmix. I don't think that money is what is what motivates them, Michael. I really don't. I think they're really motivated by the sense that they want to create a superior live streaming product. And the question becomes, what's the next step? I mean, goodness gracious, Vmix 4K came out well ahead of anybody's ability to do anything with 4K. Are you streaming 4K live? I'm not, but it's in the back of my mind that I will, and Vmix is already ready to do that. Are you using NDI? Well, you might be, but Vmix put NDI in 2 years ago. But Vmix was the first company that I know of outside of New Tech to embrace NDI and to integrate it into any of its products. And then all of a sudden people start discovering it. It's like, oh, NDI is amazing, golly gee. And yeah, Vmix has been in on it since before the very beginning. What about something that's just now kind of getting discovered and being seen is Vmix Social. Martin had the foresight to create Vmix Social, 3 years ago? And then the smarts to continue to update it with, I think, YouTube and Facebook. Maybe, I don't remember how it started out. I think it was just like a Twitter thing originally, where you could include your Twitter feed as a lower third. And now all sorts of folks are just discovering this thing that's been in Vmix for literally years. What about, George Vick says Instagram was his request. So there you go. What about, what was the other thing I was just thinking of? And I saw George's post there. Certainly putting in control for PTZ cameras was huge. And, I have customers virtually every week that are able to take advantage of doing things that were going to cost them hundreds, if not thousands of dollars more, because Vmix has got PTZ control built in. My goodness. Anyway, there was something else. Nick Pendergrass said, hey, Tom, I sent you an email through your site. I understand you were traveling. Are you still playing catch up? Yes, we're still playing catch up. We processed a ton, literally a ton of orders today for goodies that are going to go all over the country. It's really fun, really fun. And a big shout out to all of those of you that waited for me to get back in town, and we were able to do business last night and this morning. Let's see. Kent has got a question. I missed his question. So Kent, if you want to post it again, if it's something that I know anything about, I'll have a go at it. Michael Wilson said, passion can drive development, but money helps. It does. It does. Christy wants her toaster to be NDI. Okay. I get it. And Martin had the insight to see NDI would be an industry changer. Yes. Tommy says, look at how many small churches use Vmix because they can afford it. Oh, Tommy, that's a great comment. That is a great comment. And I suspect that that's a big motivator for Martin. Christy wants toast for everybody. NDI over IoT. All right, Dave, you got to help us on that one. Brian Daly found the tally light feature on mobile phones a great feature in Vmix. There you go, and the ability to hook up to tally lights in general. Show of hands. How many of you are using tally lights? Probably not a lot, but Paul Richards was mentioning this yesterday in the show that he did with Live Streaming Pros about tally lights. And when he was self-producing his show, he knew which camera to look at because he was producing it. But when he hired somebody to direct the show for him and do the switching, he didn't necessarily know which camera they were on. So they set up tally lights. Unfortunately, Vmix was able to process the tally lights. Giles says, at Tom -3. Dave says, Internet of Things. Okay, thank you. Yes, NDI over Internet of Things. Well, yeah. And support for MIDI controllers. I agree with that. Yeah. And I was talking with Dan Slider. Is Dan in today? Dan, are you here? Dan is with PI Engineering, the X Keys folks, and he said that Martin integrated support for X Keys before Dan even knew that Martin knew X Keys existed. So it's not like they announced it. Gil Yum says tallies are very important. They are very important depending on which settings. Oh, I see. That's how many fingers you're holding up. Is that not what you asked for? No, I wanted a show of hands as folks that are using tally lights. There we go. Michael Wilson did a 6-day basketball tournament. A fourth of the games were completely unmanned, and I just left Vmix running, automating things. There you go. All right. Kent wants to know, just wondering if there's any way to connect a Zcam to a monitor like a webcam. To connect a Zcam to a monitor like a webcam. I don't think you can connect a webcam to a monitor. Can you? My problem is I don't have room for a tripod. Well, then you have to get creative. You don't have to have a tripod. You can have a boom arm. You can have a little mini tripod like this guy. Depending on what's sitting on it, it can do very good. I've got a tripod. Let's see, where is it? There we go. Here's a little cool tripod right here. I think this cost me like $2-3. It's from Eddie Bauer, and it will sit on a desktop. It will also allow itself to be strapped to a pole or strapped to anything. And then it's got the traditional tripod adjustments there. Just a little guy. There are lots of little things like that that can come in really handy. So you don't have to have a traditional tripod if you don't have room. Or if you've already got one tripod, you can hang a bunch of things off of it. Let's see. 125. Welcome, guest 125. Can I use Vmix call over a VPN? Sure. For ingesting to a TV station head end for TV broadcast. Absolutely. Should be no problem in doing that. Michael Wilson automated things like slideshows, tickers, playlists, triggers, and the web controller, making it for an automated using it for automated stuff pretty feasible. Love it, Michael. We need to show off your system sometime when you will let us do that. Tommy says, is it true you pulled a fire alarm switch so you could record the fire engine arriving at the motel? No, that was not a happy event. And Guillaume says, why do you need a VPN? Vmix call is peer-to-peer. And we'll negotiate the shortest distance between 2 points. That is true. Giles says, PTZ Optics Zcams has all sorts of outputs, doesn't it? No. I think it has, Zcam has SDI output, has output over IP, does not have HDMI, and I'm not sure if it's got a composite or not. Raji says, when are you going to do a hands-on training on New Tech Spark? Good question. I've got one here. I need to sit down and play with it some. Guest 125 said, the last Vmix to Vmix had a few hiccups. That could be true. It's possible that a VPN will help that, but it's also possible that there were some jumps where the internet went from point D to point E and had a little hiccup there. Vmix call output. Will Vmix call output be high enough quality for TV broadcast? Can you set the bit rate? Yes, you can set the resolution, and there are different presets where you can set 1080p. I think it's 1080p 30 at maybe 4, or is it 6 megabits per second? Let's see. Yeah, it's 4. So it's 1080p 4, 720, 2, 720.8, 720, 1.2, 360.5, and 240.3. So there are lots of options for Vmix call. Need a yawn button. Yeah, really. Tommy has a tally light on one camera and still gets confused. Isn't Vmix call already encrypted end to end? That's a good question. Don't have a clue. Don't have a clue. Yen says the big fixture for me is the web API, and thereby the ability to make custom applications that control and get info from Vmix. Ha ha! Yes, and that's one of those that, you know, it's just kind of snaking under the radar, and then one of these days it's just going to explode, and there are going to be 50 plugins for Vmix instead of the half a dozen or dozen that there are now. And Guillaume says that he doesn't think a VPN will help with the hiccups. And Giles thinks that Vmix call is encrypted. And Merle is having the same problem. Merle, Tommy, what am I going to do with you guys? All right, Kent says the second question is, would you recommend as an upgrade from the C920 to a Z-Cam, or is there something else I should look at? Kent, that's a good question. The Z-Cam is a $5 camera. Excuse me, a $500 camera. The C920 is a sub $100 camera. My guess is there's got to be something in between. But the real question is, you know, are you looking for a studio camera? Is that what you want? A high quality studio camera? The Z-Cam could be the one. The Z-Cam, what is it called? The VL, or I think it's the Z-Cam VL that has the variable zoom lens. I think it's a manual adjustment. Guillaume says Giles is right. Web RTX is secure. George wants to know if anybody's upgraded from a Ruby to an Obsidian. Performance differences noticeable. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they're noticeable, all right. Oh, Tommy said, well, to be honest, my tally light is a flashlight duct taped to my camera, and the bright light is blinding. Tommy, where do you come up with this stuff? Ted says RE Vmix output to a TV station head end. If you're trying to hit a specific time at the head end, you'll need to check the delay factor between your transmitter computer and the receiver at the head end. Otherwise, you may find that the switch to your stream happens before or after you start the show you're streaming. Good advice. Good advice, Ted. Thank you. Brian wants Tommy to blink. Martin says that he's attracting aliens. And we can see that the The chat is just spiraling downwards. Spiraling downwards. Kent, I'll make you a deal. If you are interested in the PTZ Optics Zcam, the VL model, I will send you one on approval if you would like to put it into your workflow and test it and see if you like it. If you don't like it, send it back to me. If you like it, send me a check. How about that for a deal? It would be a good opportunity for you to experiment with it in your specific environment. I've got a couple out on trial right now with folks, and I suspect that they'll be keeping them. We'll just have to see. So, Kent, that's a open offer. Now, Kent and I go way back. Kent and I have been doing business together for years. Way back to the VidBlaster days. So this is not a deal that I'll just make with anybody. Unless, of course, you and I go back to the VidBlaster days. Tommy says, Martin, the aliens and I made a deal. They don't poke and prod, and I keep my shotgun put up. Well, that sounds like a pretty good deal. And John says, keep the wallet closed, Giles. That'll keep the blighters in check. Blighters. Don't know about blighters. That's one of those situations where you've got two different parts of the world separated by a common language, because I don't have a clue what they're talking about. And the chat has degraded to talk about aliens. So maybe that's our cue to begin to slip out of post-show here. Oh, here we go. Liam has given us the definition. A person who is regarded with contempt, irritation, or pity is a blighter. Thank you. Thank you. Now if I'm called a blighter, I'll know. It's all Tommy's fault. There you go. All right, Daniel says he has the Zcam VL, but he swapped out the lens for a Bosch 550 lens for more range. Oh, that's interesting. Was that the Bosch 550? I'm not familiar with, Daniel. Is that a high quality lens, an economy quality lens? Is it a good quality lens? Did you have to use an adapter, or did it mount right up? Would love to know. Kent says, that's great. I will email you my address. Okay. Now, Kent, again, before you email me your address, remember that this is an SDI camera, or it will take video over IP. But when it takes video over IP, there will be some latency. All right. Lighter comes from the word blight. Huh. You guys are just, the sum total of your knowledge is amazing. Really is. Really is. Anybody joined us lately? Let's see. We got Kent, we got Raji, we got Jens, we got Nick, we got George. Andres is here. Welcome. Glad to have you. Jerome is here. Hey, Jerome. Jerome and I met last year at NAB. Dave is here. Hey, Dave. Glad to have you. Liam, indeed. All right. And Kirk is here. Good deal. Tom, one more time, what mic are you using? I am using the Audio-Technica AT897 shotgun mic. It's on a boom right here, and it is a phantom-powered mic and does a great job, but it is very sensitive. So you have to have a good sound proofing, sound deadening in your room there. And I also want to give a shout out to our new live streaming rookies class starting next Tuesday, at 3 o'clock Eastern in the afternoon. It is Vmix 101, the basics of live production would be good. And if you have given me your email address in the past, you'll be receiving an email about that class. Please share that with somebody you think might benefit from it, if that person is not you. Let's see. Daniel says, I'm not sure if it is commercial or consumer quality. We're talking about the lens now. But the quality of the picture is awesome. It is a direct CS lens mount. Very good. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing that information. I am going to make a note of that. That was the Bosch 550 millimeter on the CS lens mount. And that's for the Zcam VL. All right. All right. Rich has got a serious question. Well, that'll stick out like a sore thumb, won't it? I've noticed some live feeds on Facebook are higher quality than others, i.e. CNN. What distinguishes the video quality? Well, Rich, that's a great question. Obviously, number one, the video quality is determined by the video that's sent. So if somebody's sending 360 or 480, it's not going to look as good as somebody that was sending 720. I noticed that the PTZ Optics live stream today looked very good at 480. And I'm sure they were sending 720. I know Facebook has been experimenting with 1080, and so it may be that CNN has got an early dibs on 1080 and is able to get it. There's a little gear icon there on the Facebook live video feed, and so you might pop into that and check those settings to see if you can get a 1080p resolution on the CNN feed, or if 780 is the highest that you can select. Christopher has been lurking while prepping for Lenten worship tonight. Well, good, Christopher. You're probably disappointed. No, that's good post show. Ted says to Chris, I guess that means you're not giving up live streaming for Lent. Oh, that's funny. Daniel says the lens that comes on the Zcam is a Fujinon 2.8 to 12 millimeter lens. Well, that's good to know. Fujinon 2.8 to 12 millimeter is standard. And so you went to the 550. Interesting to know if the 550 and that's 5-50, so 5 millimeter at the close-up and 50 millimeter at the zoomed end. Whether the 50 millimeter, how that translates into X's in PTZ Optics X world. Whether a 50 millimeter is a 10x or 12x or something like that. Let's see. Tommy says, on a serious note, may I suggest a show on Facebook, Mike Rose returning the favor? Oh, thank you, Tommy. That's a good idea. I like Mike Rowe. He seems very reasonable in a day and age where that seems to be in short supply. Rich says that the CNN, that they all seem to be 720, but the quality varies. And that could be very well a glass issue, Rich. You know, it just depends on the camera. Depends on the quality that's being sent. Christy says, Mike Rowe rocks. I agree with that. And John will check out the show. Daniel will be streaming Lenten services tonight. Very good. Ted says, if companies like CNN generally use dedicated boxes to transcode the incoming SDI audio to whatever bit rate they transmit to the CDN, big companies like CNN generally use dedicated boxes for transcoding. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that for sure. Interesting. So how many of you, I was just looking at the stats on the YouTube feed, and we've got 50 folks watching us live on YouTube right now. 31 of you are in chat. And others you may be monitoring or lurking in chat, but you haven't shown up on the chat list somehow. I'm wondering if, now I lost my question. Oh, I know what it was. How many of you missed the whole show today and just came for the post show? How many of you came to the show late and didn't catch the beginning of the show? And then how many of you have watched from the very beginning? It's always interesting to look at the stats in YouTube and Facebook too, for that matter, to see how many views a particular show had, and what the average length of time of the view was. Anderson's heading to church. See you later. George has watched the whole show. Jen's got here at the post show. John has been there for everything. Dave was here early but had to step away. The other Dave has gone start to finish, endured it all. Thanks, Dave. Oh. All right, Daniel Wright says if the 2.8 to 12 is 4x, then a 5 to 50 would be a 10x. Thank you. Very good. Kenny says, I watch on YouTube and chat on your site. I have trouble splitting chat away, etc. on the site. I watched from the start. Jerome was late. Christy watched the whole show. Nick came in late at the Spectre. Oh, thank you, Nick. That's good to know. Hassan is still here. Amnon from the start. And Giles with a greeting for Kenny. Thank you for sharing. That was really helpful. It's interesting. It's always nice to look at the stats in YouTube and see that the watch time, the average watch time for one of these shows is, anywhere from, depending on the show, anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes, which I think is absolutely amazing. Martin S. has been here from the start, which I'm not really sure about. And Christopher came in at the same time as Nick did. Daniel came in during the makeup show. That was pretty fun. If you missed it, shall we reenact it? Yeah, I was thinking this is in Tess's honor. So I had this on, and I was putting on my. I wear makeup for every show, and so I was applying some of the makeup, and it looks like I missed a spot right there. And that's the part that Daniel came in on. All right, Ted says the camera can make a big difference, but the box can too. Good comment, Ted. Thank you. Brian said started looking at the screen long before it even started, just in case. Oh my goodness, and the rest of you guys just need to get a life. That's all I can say. Is that brush for latex or oil-based makeup? That's a good one, Kenny. Martin says I need a trowel. That is, at my age, yeah, I need a trowel to fill in some of these wrinkles down here. Oh goodness, that's fun. That's fun. Spackle, says Dave. That's right. Yeah, I could use a caulk gun. Oh, caulk gun and a sandblaster. How about that? I thought about bringing in a paint roller. Martin knows a good plasterer. John says that we live our lives vicariously through you, Tom. John, I cannot think of an adequate response to that, except to say you need to get out more. Christy says, I need some crack spackle. Oh my goodness. Too funny. Too funny. Too funny. Well, gents, I got to go back to work here. I got to figure out how am I going to get a camera to Kent. And Dave says, not vicariously, precariously. Yes, indeed. And if you haven't already made your reservations for Las Vegas, you need to get on that, because all the good stuff's being taken. All the good hotels. Mike says, and you know a good metaller. Oh my goodness. Tom needs highway maintenance. Okay. Rich says March 1st ends for the free pass. March 1st ends for the free exhibit passes. Thank you, Rich. That's important to know. Yeah. Happy trail, says Merle. Tom needs some chickens by all accounts. No, the Jack Russells would do away with the chickens. Martin says, any solutions for the KFC problems we have here at the moment? No, I'll let Tommy and Merle handle that one. How about? Yeah, there we go. There we go. All right, well, it was great to be with you guys. Thank you. As always, I'm always honored that you guys would be bored enough to spend the afternoon with me, or the evening, as it were. And I'll do my best to underwhelm you again next week at this same time. So y'all take care. If I can help you in any way, give me a shout. And keep on live streaming. We'll let the stream run out. Catch you later.